Yes, sir.
Ready and waiting.
At once.
Yes, sir.
For king and
on my
country.
way. On my way. For king and country. On my way. Yes, sir. Indeed. 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 For king and country.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Acknowledged.
Affirmative. Agreed. Agreed.
Nose down.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Very
Acknowledged.
well.
Vehicle
Reporting.
reporting. Awaiting orders.
Very well.
Vehicle
Acknowledged.
reporting. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. For king and country. On my way. Indeed. For king and my way.
Acknowledged.
Agreed.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting.
Yes, sir. For king and country. On my way.
Reporting.
Yes, sir. For king and country. Indeed. For king and country. Yes, sir. Indeed.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Very well.
Yes, sir.
Commander, on my way. For king and country.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Commander, on my way.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Indeed. On my way. Indeed.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reinforcements have
Acknowledged.
arrived.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reinforcements have
Acknowledged.
arrived.
Affirmative.
Signal flare detected
Acknowledged.
from the
Affirmative.
south.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready and
Order.
waiting. At
Lost.
once.
Agreed.
Affirmative. At once. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
At once. Very well.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. At once.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost. Unit lost.
Commander, for king and country. For king and country. Indeed. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. On my way.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Very well. At once. Very well. Affirmative. At once.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
New construction options. Building. Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Yes, sir.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete. New construction
Yes, sir.
options. Building.
Acknowledged.
On hold. Cancel.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. At once.
Training.
Awaiting orders. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Agreed.
Training. Unit ready.
Ready and waiting.
Training.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Agreed.
Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Reporting.
funds.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete. New construction options.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building. Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
On hold. Cancel. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Awaiting orders.
Our base
Acknowledged.
is under attack. Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Building. Insufficient funds. Construction complete. Our base is under attack. Repairing. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Our base is under attack. Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete. Repairing. Our base is under attack. Building.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. Our base is under attack. Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Building. Insufficient funds. Our base is under attack.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Commander. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. On my way.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Our base is under attack. Repairing.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Commander. Indeed. 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 For king and country. For king and country.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Silos needed. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready. Building.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Awaiting orders.
Unit ready.
Yes,
Awaiting
sir.
orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. At once. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Agreed. At one. Agreed. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Very
lost.
well. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Building. Building. Our base is under attack. Repairing. Unit ready. Insufficient funds. Construction
Yes, sir.
complete.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting
Construction
order reporting.
options. Repairing. Building.
Acknowledged. Of course.
Repairing. Our base is
Yes,
under
sir.
attack. Unit repaired.
Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. On hold.
Yes, sir.
Cancel.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Reporting.
Repairing. Construction complete. Building. Unit repaired. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building. Construction complete.
Reporting.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building. Building. Construction complete. Unit ready. Building.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing. Unit ready. Building. Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Reporting.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Our base
Acknowledged.
is under attack.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir? Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Construction
Yes, sir?
complete.
Vehicle reporting.
Repairing.
Yes, sir? Acknowledged.
Repairing. Building. Training.
Vehicle
Unit
acknowledged.
prepared.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Training. Unit ready.
Awaiting
Repairing. Unit
order.
ready. Training.
Yes, sir? Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Training.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Training.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir? Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir?
Unit
Affirmative.
prepared.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged.
Repairing. Training. Unit
Vehicle
repaired.
reporting. Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
Training. Repairing. Unit ready. Training. Building. Unit ready.
Yes,
Yes,
sir?
sir.
Training.
Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Training.
Reporting. Affirmative. Ready and waiting.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Reporting at once.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Base
Affirmative.
is built.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Awaiting
Building.
orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building. Repairing. Repairing. Unit ready. Building. Silos
Vehicle
marked.
acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired.
Vehicle reporting.
Silos needed.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unit
Acknowledged.
lost. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Silos needed. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Awaiting
Acknowledged.
orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes,
Unit
sir.
ready.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Vehicle. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Vehicle reporting.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative.
Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Awaiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Awaiting affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Silos
Affirmative.
needed.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Our
Acknowledged.
base is under
Affirmative.
attack.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Very well. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. At one. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Our base is under attack. Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building. Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building. Unit
Waiting
lost.
orders.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Building. Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Ready and waiting. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Lost.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit
Waiting
ready.
orders.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Awaiting orders.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Ready. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Sir?
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Of course. Awaiting orders.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
ready.
sir. Affirmative. Knowledge.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Knowledge. Affirmative. Knowledge.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Knowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Building.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Knowledge.
Unit
Acknowledge.
ready.
Acknowledge.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Knowledge. Affirmative. Knowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge.
Building.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Waiting orders.
Affirmative.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building. Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Placed.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Vehicle yes, sir. Report acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Awaiting acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Preparing. Preparing.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Preparing.
Engineering. Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Objective met.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Acknowledge.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge.
Ready.
Affirmative.
Lost.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Waiting orders.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Reporting acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Mission accomplished.